let's say, hopefully half an hour, for 40 minutes. I hope to be fast, and then we will do a small exercise. Do you want me to? Can you hear, or do you want me to use the microphone? Microphone. Okay. Can you hear me at home, even with the microphone? Yes. Okay. Okay. So this is a lesson and an exercise that is kind of an icebreaker. We'll be talking a bit about texture and pattern, and I will not be giving you like super specific information about what is a texture and what is a pattern and how to build it on Illustrator or this kind of stuff. We'll be mostly seeing some examples and to get some inspiration on the exercise that we'll be doing after this presentation. What is the exercise of this part? Certo. Okay, so this is the cover. So what is the exercise? We're going to produce a booklet of graphic experimentations. So we'll be getting in touch with the book form. We're going to start to treat this paper in a way that can be browsed like a small booklet. And we will be seeing some examples and that hopefully can inspire you. Last year, they did, so hopefully also this year, and we can finish this experimentation today in class or at home if you want to do something more elaborate. So let's see some references. Libri Finti Clandestini is a collective of designers that are based in Milan, and they were guests last year course, so they presented their work. They what they do is they get into abandoned places and collect all the paper scraps and old paper to produce books. So it's a cosmopolitan art collective formed by artists El Pacino, Hanif Delarev, and Igor Kowalski. They are obviously fake names. That bases its work and research on the artist's book. Founded in Rome in the summer of 2012 and later established in Milan in the following years, Libri Finti Clandestini project was born with the aim of making real books using only paper found around. The paper that people normally consider junk. In fact, exploiting materials with the most heterogeneous pedigree possible, coming from abandoned factories around Europe, libraries, warehouses, paper mills, archives, and printing workshops. So what they do, they get in, abandoned places, old schools, old factories, and they start to collect all the paper scraps, all the paper that they can find around, rotten paper, paper that have been already used. Everything can be the object of experimentation. And what they do, they produce this artist book. There are most of the time tiny notebooks, but there are also books that tell a story sometimes. Last year they did a tiny zine, really small squared zine, totally produced inside a train in Japan, and it was a zine on that train. So it's they really try to bring the production of books to the next level using what they can find around. And for example, those are some artist books they produced. The specifics are in Italian, but we can get to the point in later classes. So they used some white paper, some old stationery modules, and the cover is produced with something that was printed before. So it was like 48 pages with cover and the saddle stitching. As you can see, the books are really interesting because they employ different papers inside, and it's really fun to browse them and to discover what they found around the world. Again, this one was really interesting because they used a printing test from a silk screen that were just thrown away because it was not good, to use it as a cover of this kind of book. This is an illustration by Jesse Jacobs. There is a really fine illustrator from Canada and comic book artist, and they, in contact with typographies and silk screen printing workshops, they collect all these materials and they produce these artist books. As you can see inside, again, all stationery stuff, different papers, but all treated really in a loving way. So this was most about the book form. About the textures, what are we seeing? The famous artist course I mentioned earlier was this correspondency course by the finest illustrators of the golden age in America. And inside this course, there are lessons that start from how to project a drawing to finish it with different techniques. Inside, there are all kinds of information. They're explained in a really professional and thorough way. So if you want to learn to drawing, if you follow that course, you can surely get something done. And inside, they start talking about the pencils. So it's something that you probably have. And it's important to understand that pencils have different, strength of the nib. So we have the HB that is this halfway and is the most basic one, and then we have the H that is harder and the B that is softer. Softer lines are used for artistic drawing because we can get some chiaroscuro, different kinds of shading. Harder lines are instead used for technical drawing because we don't want to get the paper dirty and we want to work in a clean way. So understanding that, we can see that in reality with pencil, we can start to produce different kinds of textures just by tilting our pencil, having it sharpened or not, crossing, cross-hatching, or shading just with the less or more imposition of our hand on the pencil. So they propose some exercise to start to get your hand on the pencil and understand the possibilities of this instrument. Again, they tell you can do this kind of textures. You can do it in a really, really smooth and light way with the pencil tilted, or you really can go in a hard way and achieve something that is darker. So understanding the possibilities and stressing the possibilities of the instruments that we're using, we can also achieve different kinds of textures. These are some examples, something that maybe you can try to replicate to see what you can get with the pencil that you have. And the same they do with ink. So they explain that with classic ink, with the metal nib, depending on how much you press with the metal nib on the paper, you can achieve different thickness of lines. So you can start really soft and having a thin line, and then press because the metal nib has, like, let's say two parts that when you press they slightly open and let more ink come out. And you can achieve different kinds of lines. They can be really soft, or they can be straightforward like this one. You can cross-hatch in this way, do tiny dots or tiny lines that can give you this kind of effect. You can cross-hatch in a regular way, do some kind of entropic kind of textures. So it's a different kind of textures that you can achieve with ink, but I mean, they show you all the possibilities that you can achieve. Again, it's possible to variate the strength of your stroke. starting to really really thin to really strong, find new ways of giving gaps to the lines, so that you can have a dot line or something like that. So find your ways and the possibilities of the medium. This is some textures produced by Jan Čejka, I don't know the exact pronunciation, for a book about the textures in architecture. So especially in urban planning, at least in the past, because now it's all produced with digital instruments, a lot of textures were used to differentiate different kinds of fields, and areas of the project. Jan Čejka gives you some hints on how to do it. So they work mostly on regularity, so having always the same length of the stroke, and as you can see, always kind of the same distance, but still in a manual way. You can see there is a human touch in this texture, but also in this one. So it's an entropic one, but aims at regularity. Again, this cross-hatching that is really similar to one used in mangas. It's something that employs 3 lines and then changing in the angle every time to achieve some kind of regularity. This one is made of little circles, but they don't need to be too big or too small, because otherwise something can break in the overall impression. And in this case, it's just 2 types of lines in an angle and in another angle, that the moment you put one on top of the other, you achieve this kind of tiny geometric forms that gives you a regular pattern. The same can be done also with colors. So you can also produce a gradient of colors, starting with just one green, then adding another one in another direction, another green in another direction, and progressively adding up colors, so to achieve something that is really deep. In my experience, the best way to use colored pencil is by stratification. So it's not just pencil out of the box and I draw, but it's always about doing a layer of a color, then adding another layer, then adding another layer, and in the end you get this sense of the color that is really deep and interesting. And the same can happen also with different colors. The moment we want to draw, let's say, a field, a grass field, is not just the green out of the box, but we can add a tiny layer of maybe violet, and then a little bit of red for the shading, and then some black, and then some green, and then another green. And in this way, we can achieve a texture that is, different layers on top of each other. Again, some pattern for Francesco De Maio e La Datina by Joe Ponti, architect and designer. Joe Ponti was an extraordinary architect that produced also super interesting tiles to be used in his projects and also in other architects' projects. And this drawing is really interesting because shows you the different variations and how he worked on the project. Taking notes, trying different solutions, starting from a grid that he drew with 45 angle lines, dividing it, but then trying out different solutions, colors, and taking notes to understand where his pattern, where these styles were added. Again, all these sketches for me are fundamental to understand the thought of an artist or a designer, because let you understand the process behind it, because there is this process, so the study and lucubrations, starting to understand what we want to do with this style and the overall project, and then there is the final drawing. So something that must be produced in the exact and precise way to be brought in production. And there are drawings that, in my opinion, need to be seen paired, because you understand that there is something before and something that is more on focus, like this one. And these styles, as you can see, it's a regular drawing, but can be also disposed in different ways to achieve different designs. So that's something that we can think about. And that's how the Gio Ponti tiles are used in interior design. Again, a tile is different from a texture. A texture is something that we do, and we can, use on large areas, maintaining a consistency. A tile can create a pattern, or can be just a tile, so it works by itself. So those are other examples by Gio Ponti, more in a regular way. And those are the carpets that he produced for La Datina, that again employ this language made of straight lines, diagonal lines, cuts and colors, disposed always in different ways, as to have a kind of pattern that is coming out in his projects. As you can see, there are few colors, few shapes, but always disposed in different ways, as to achieve this result. I think it's really nice and really expensive, because Gio Ponti furnitures is really expensive. Talking about tiles, I want to show you this probably the most famous and used tile in cinema, and is this tile that was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, architect Frank Lloyd Wright, for the Ennis House in Los Angeles. This style is based on Frank Lloyd Wright studies on South American ethnicities, Maya, and this kind of architecture that is studied in the past. So also the architecture that he produced resemble in a way some Mayan temple, but it also the fruit of his studies on Japanese culture, the proportions, and all this kind of stuff. In his Ennis house, he employed this style that is really complex and deep, and it was so out of his time, so in the future, that was used by Ridley Scott in the Blade Runner movie that I hope every one of you saw, from 1982, and is the Deckard's apartment, and also the palace where he goes in the beginning of the movie. So again, you can also work on a tile that is so deep and layered that give you this out of this world sense that Frank Lloyd Wright successfully conceived in the past. You can also work on changing always the color. Demineers, pop artists, I mean, you can love it, you can hate it. In this isonicotinic acid ethyl ester from 2010, these colored dots. What he did was basically drawing a lot of different dots with different colors, and there are not two dots with the same color. This was the gimmick of this artwork. That I mean, they were changing like super slightly of a small percentage, but this was the gimmick of Demineers that produce a lot of artworks in this way. So color space paintings, he works on dot, he works on, this kind of artworks that, I mean, you can like it, you cannot like it. It really depends on your taste. What I think is the most interesting references is surely Ettore Sottsass Jr. for Memphis. So Sottsass was a designer that did a lot of stuff. He wrote books, he designed furnitures, he designed architecture, impossible architectures, but he also designed patterns, and he worked on the materials that were growing during these times, the 60s, 70s, when he collaborated with the Milan-based furniture firm Memphis. There is still interesting furniture, but again, super expensive. He started with these super boxes. He worked on pure forms, shapes that were presented in Domus in the end of the 60s. It was a radical approach to architecture and design that was brought on by different designers of the time, Gaetano Pesce, also artists, a lot of designers that were then aggregated in a famous exhibition called Italy, the New Domestic Landscape, that I think is really interesting, and I can link it to you, by MoMA. And those are some furnitures that as you can see, different designers were involved in the creation of furnitures with new materials. So there was Archizoom, Ettore Sozzas, Super Studio, that you might know for the Continuum monument with this regular black and white grid crossing the city. So they were working on plastic materials, new materials, something that today is common, but in the past, where furniture was made of actual wood, was something really new. And the interesting part is that Sozzas worked on his patterns and textures by observing reality in a critical way. So this is a project for a plastic laminated pavement that was the result of a drawing that he did in Grande Tempio di Madurai. So it's a big temple in where, I don't remember where, but the impression that he had of this temple with all these fine details, irregularities in the elevations, brought him to develop this, kind of tiny germs and irregular forms, tiny snakes that became really famous, that you saw in the cover of this presentation. So he started to employ them within his furnitures. This is an axo for the Armadio Casablanca for Memphis, again, 1981. But I think it's interesting to read what Sozzas said. I chose for the decorations, plastic laminate design, especially produced by Abet Laminati, pieces from the iconography of the standard culture of private furniture. Therefore, I chose textures like the grit and mosaics of the toilets in the subways of large metropolises, or like the nets of suburban fences, or like the spongy paper of ministerial and police account books. And then I chose colors like those of the chairs in the dairy below the house. Then I chose plastic laminate, which is a ready material without uncertainties. I would have liked to be able to propose a kind of iconography of non-culture, of a culture of no one. So what Sozzas did was just walk the streets, go in the subway, observe the textures that were produced around, observe the objects of everyday use, so old books with, really handcrafted covers, and he tried to convey this information in textures that were suitable for furnitures that he produced, using colors that were pop, that were bold, inspired by the chairs at the bar below his house. So this was his approach. It was really radical and I think really interesting, and really demonstrates how sometimes, most of the interesting stuff is hidden in plain sight. So you can, it's just a matter of observing the reality that surrounds us. So these are some of the textures. Sorry for the low res, but it's just a reference to let you understand on which he worked. And the last reference is more an exercise by illustrator Christoph Niemann, where he started to, look around and try to create a double page in continuity with the table where he was working on. So it's another kind of approach. Christoph Niemann is famous for his interesting and curious illustrations. In this case, he tried to find this continuity between his cloth on the table and his booklet. So this was really a short presentation to give you some examples. The exercise is to produce a booklet of graphic experimentation, and I'd like you to ask yourselves the following questions. Is it possible to tell a story only with textures and or patterns and no words? What surrounds me? Is there something that I didn't notice? And the answer is yes. So please start to look around and see if you notice something else. Should I use regular drawing materials or should I try something different? I ask you this because last year some people did drawing by taking the paper and just stomping on it. So the pattern was that of the bottom part of their shoes. Some others, they try to find the textures of the wall, putting the paper on the wall and working on that. Some others bought a coffee and used the coffee to use to create different patterns. So I really want you to think in a lateral way, not in a common way. Try to experiment in the first stages, and then maybe pick a theme and try to tell a story only with patterns. Last year I didn't have some examples, but this year I can show you what your colleagues did last year. So this is Anna Bubriakova that works on transformations from white to black. So they worked on this flimsy paper that I have also today that you can get. I also brought some paper if you don't have any. And they started to work from white, adding progressively color, brightening up, using different kind of texture until she reached a deep black. Farial Mahmoud, on the other hand, really worked in a hard way on doing a really nice looking texture and patterns book. It was kind of a museum of patterns performed with different techniques, with different drawing materials, and it's something that she worked really hard on it, and she finished for the week after. And in the end, there was really a museum of experimentations with different mediums. So she took anything she had and she tried with different techniques every time with different results. Beza instead worked on the interaction between water and ink. So she took ink, she took water, she did dots, and she worked on how these two elements can produce different effects. So it was a booklet of experimentations of this theme. Lediona Mirashi, on the other hand, just went out of the class and just started to work on the street and found a textile shop where she started to replicate all the patterns that she looked around. So it was a really interesting approach, and also the booklet in the end was really interesting. And Tina Eidari again worked mostly on natural languages, so using watercolor and colored pencil. She tried to communicate nature through different textures. And those are just some of the ones that I still have the material with me, but really there was all kind of stuff, and I hope you can do something like that. And so this exercise is not in class. I mean, you don't have to sit in class like this and think about what to do, but you have to go out, go in the street, go around, but please come back in 1 hour and a half, because I want you to observe this faculty, explore the faculty, go upstairs, go downstairs, go out in the street, go nearby, reach places nearby so you can come back. But try to have an open mind on what's around you and try to find maybe some texture or pattern that you're wishing to replicate. So this is the exercise. Obviously, for those of you that are in your home or outside your home, if you want. And yeah, any questions? No questions. Sounds great. I'd say at least 8, 10, 12 pages, 12 pages at least. Yeah. But I mean, last year there were people that did, I don't know, 6 pages, 8 pages, sorry, but really thick and full of information, and people that did 30 pages full of tiny sketches. So it's really find your theme, find a way to represent it. Maybe we can, I'm here so we can talk about it, and then go on with your project. No. You can decide to do something light and finish it within these 2 hours, or start to work on it and then maybe finish it for next week. So it's up to you. Depends on how much you want to work on it. It's really up to you. Okay. Other questions? Got some paper, some A3 paper that you can take, and also some other flimsy paper, like old fax paper. I don't. Does anyone of you know faxes? Do you know what fax is? Okay, so this is old fax paper. So it's really flimsy, and if you need other paper, I can get. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But please get out of this class and explore the package. I don't want you to stay in class.
What time do you have to go back?
Sorry?
What time do you have to go back?
Let's say we'll see